Yes, Kate, just let me know, okay?
Sure will. Thank you, Rich.
That being said, according to the agenda, we've got a few items on the agenda. First item would be to discuss the financial statements ending for the period ending September 30th. Mike, I'll turn that over to you.
Sure. And if you wouldn't mind just pulling those up. This is the summary that we typically have. General fund expenditures for the month are we're at 13.6 million, and this is compared to 13.5 for the same period in the prior year. So we're right along where we thought we would be. I'll go into the summary page shortly after. For the fiscal year to date, we're at 19.1 million, and we have $113 million encumbered. At this point, we are starting the fiscal year, in July. So we have July, August, and now September. So we're still in the process. This is very similar to last year, if you remember, of getting all of the things that we need to get encumbered as they come across. So you will see some large positive balances. This is very similar to last year as we begin to encumber things. The one thing that is fully encumbered is the salary portion. So if a person is on payroll, their salary for the entire year, including that big balloon payment at the end of the year, is already encumbered. You will see there's still items to be encumbered in benefits and in professional services, but we'll get to that in a moment. Ken, if you would just to the next page. So here is our month-to-date actual. We're at that 13.6 million for the month. You'll see the budget number now is reflective of the new budget that we have adopted. That's the 172 million, and I don't want to forget the $1,000.63. Year-to-date expenditures, as we said before, totaled 19 million. Again, most of that being salaries and benefits. And then the next column over, you see our encumbrances. So this is what we have encumbered so far, 113.3 in encumbrances. And that gives us a balance as of the end of September of 39 million unencumbered. Most of that is salaries and benefits, as well as, like I said, other purchase services. The title that we give other purchase services, I must sound like a broken record, but it's other purchase services / transportation. There's many accounts that go into that. It's not just transportation. One of the things in the following reports, when we dig in the details really behind the salaries and benefits, is we just submitted, I should say, Kara just submitted the Alliance grant. And the Alliance grant is one of our largest, it is the largest grant that the district has. And it got kicked back on a technicality dealing with how we tag certain initiatives. So she's currently, she's not able to join us today, but she's currently going through the very tedious task of re-tagging everything so that it could be submitted and approved. We have no reason to believe it wouldn't be approved as is. It's just that tagging issue. Once that's completed, that's kind of step one of a two-step process. The other step is the Human Resources Department goes through a task every year of reporting to the state who exactly of our staff works where. And once those two, the Alliance and that staffing report, are completed, we kind of like lock our staffing down. And it's at that point we can begin the process of going through the Alliance grant, same as we did last year, and ensuring that any new people that are in Alliance are actually being charged to Alliance and not the general fund, and vice versa. Anyone that's currently being charged to Alliance that shouldn't be, it will be moved out into the general fund. So the $4.1 million balance in salaries will change when Angela and I and Juanita, who's in charge of our grants, rebalance the staffing, and the benefits will follow.
Mike, could you sort of jumped ahead. Could you go to the next page, the detail page? Exactly. The Alliance is a couple of schedules down, and I just want to make sure I understand something. In going through the salaries, I've noticed when you're looking at the last column, the year-to-date budget balance, or throughout the report, and particularly in this particular category of salaries, there are a huge amount of numbers that at this point in time show negative balances, some small, some extremely large. What's creating that at this point here?
Yeah, so the column all the way to the left where it says general ledger number, that's where we physically, I guess, put, you could say, the positions. And we budget based upon where people were for the largest part last year. But they don't, as we hire new people, sometimes the coding for the individuals should be one thing and it gets entered in as another. So every year we go through this once everyone's locked down, and we make sure that everyone is in the correct place. So you may see, someone on here that is a physical therapist, and that's how they're in our code, is a 51037. But in actuality, they should be an occupational therapist, which is a 51035. So that happens as we download or upload, I should say, all the information into the budget. It's, hundreds and hundreds of lines. Sometimes those lines get crossed over. So once we lock everyone down, we go back through and make sure that they're in the correct codes, which should fix this.
Okay, because when you look at lines like counseling, you've got a negative balance of close to $1 million. You've got $1 million plus media specialists. You've got close to $3 million on teaching ESL bilingual. Are you saying that a lot of it, that many of this, the negative balances are caused because of coding issues, and shortly they'll be corrected?
Yes, correct.
Okay, all right. Again, we've gone through, last year you worked hard. We went through a good part of the year with you and Angela and other staff members cleaning up the coding, as to where it was in terms of your payroll system and the accounting system. I would hope that as we progress, and hopefully by next month, I don't know what the timetable is that we get this cleaned up, because, don't take this the wrong way, the numbers here with all these variances, negative variances, don't really give a good picture. And, it took us a long time last year until you got cleaned up to finally understand what's happening. And I don't want to repeat, that timetable of us having, the bad information. So you have an
Yeah.
idea when a good part of this coding will be done?
It should be following. I would hate to do it, to rush through it and get it done and say, okay, well, we'll get it done for next month, if we only then are going to get Alliance approved and then have to go back and redo it a second time. So I'm kind of waiting for that two-step process before we start shuffling stuff around. I think the Human Resources report, Angela, I don't know if you have a better idea of when it is, but I believe it's middle of October due. And we expect Alliance to be approved shortly after.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so I would say probably, Rich, within about 30 days.
Okay, and if I understand, the Alliance grant, and when we get to it, I'll hold off until we get to, I'll hold off until we get to the grant. Um, there are
Rich,
some
sorry
items
to
on,
interrupt.
on here that we don't have, um, budget items for, and yet we have encumbrances against them. Is there a, trying to, I'll pick one up here. It's called District Software and Licenses. Um, it's under supplies continue. Um, you've got month-to-date actuals, 185,000. You don't have a year-to-date budget, but you've got an actual of $1.2 million, and you got a negative variance of 1.2, $1.2 million. Why isn't there a budget for that?
It was probably budgeted somewhere else, Rich, in the previous year. So when someone puts a requisition in, that number sticks with that expense. So again, that would just be a reclassification of actuals to where the budget belongs.
Sure.
So like I said, in about 30 days, most of that stuff should all be cleaned up.
Okay. It sounds to me that, don't take it the wrong way, I'm just trying to phrase it. The right hand, in terms of a system, doesn't know what the left hand is doing. Uh, and it just requires a tremendous amount of manual labor for you to constantly do this stuff. I mean, last year you spent so much time cleaning things up, and now we're at the same stage again. I hate to see your time and Angela's time and your staff's time done on stuff that is unproductive from a point of view of moving ahead, and that we could actually figure out where we are financially, without
Mr.
having,
Janelli,
yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I actually have a question along these lines. I wonder if I might ask.
So go ahead.
Is that okay? Okay. And I also just want to let you know Juanita is in the meeting as well. Okay.
Okay. Hi, Juanita.
Um,
Go ahead, Kate.
trying to understand, I guess, is when we talk about these reclassifications, you know, is this complicated at all? I'm sure by the fact that the Alliance grant, for example, has to be written out every year, and we don't necessarily know what we can get covered because they're sort of changing the parameters of what you can use the funding for. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
definitely part of it, Kate. We submit this budget and, we get it approved way before we get Alliance or any of the titles approved. So it's kind of, I don't want to say a guessing game because we know about where it's gonna land, but we don't know exactly. In respect to I guess the reclassification that Angela and I are doing, I think the missing piece for you, Rich, is that the process that we use inside the Tyler system, our accounting system, is that someone puts a requisition in, and the requisition then gets routed to me with all of the detail behind it. We may get, only 10 a day, but, there are days when we certainly, 50 of them can pop in. So there is a mechanism inside of Tyler where I can read through the requisition, determine what it's for, and ask where it's being charged to, and then check the budget and see if the budgeted, the requested amount is within the budget. In other words, it would prevent negative balances. The easier thing to do, I think, is to approve it, especially if it's something that's like for the new high school where it's time sensitive and we need to get this to a vendor, which, believe it or not, happens more often than not, where things are needed to be paid, immediately. In the event that there isn't a budget for it, I have the ability to deny it and send it back to the original requisitioner with a note and say, you know, the budget isn't here, which would then necessitate an email back of, well, where is the budget? I'll resubmit the requisition for where the budget is. And since I don't have, you know, every single item that we have budgeted memorized, I would then have to turn back to my budget files, go through it, find out where it is, and then respond back, and then repeat that process again. So either way, it's quite a bit of work.
Yeah, it is. I'm not looking for you to do, you know, certainly extra work on that. It just seems like the system or the process is awkward, requiring a lot of manual intervention to make sure that, you know, that the numbers match. I don't expect that somebody making a requisition would really care where it's budgeted. All that person's looking to do is to get the requisition approved, and the accounting for it is somebody else's responsibility, you know, essentially yours. But my my point being, as we move ahead, and I just sent Karen, I copied it, I don't know if I copied you on it, a note that I was hoping that at the time the board approves at the finance meeting, when we approve the reports and we make a motion that we send it to the board for approval, that that particular document during the board packet, the financials are included, gets sent to the legislative assistant, which then would get distributed to the council people, so that we could keep them abreast of our finances and make them more aware as to what's happening as we progress and try to present our budget, so that they have a better understanding as to what we're doing. If we're presenting them, so let's say we, you know, present them these numbers and we have a conversation where they come back to us, the first question is going to be, why are we having all these numbers? And then you've got to state what it is. So they sort of scratch, you know, if I were on their side, I'd scratch my head and say, well, you know, come back to me when you've got things more lined up. So that's the problem that I face. I understand the burden it's putting on you, but from a managerial point of view, in terms of utilizing these statements and trying to make sense out of them and have an understanding, it's the process is making things awkward. And again, I want you to repeat last year's, you know, timetable, spending so much time, you know, making and adjusting adjusting numbers that you know take up so much of your time. So it's frustrating. And if you say within the next 30 days, you can pretty much get a handle on it, you know, certainly live with that. I mean, that's the problem I was, you know, foreseeing at this particular point, thinking we've moved ahead and we could educate people that we look to support us as to what our finances are, without that having them make some, you know, negative or derogatory comments on the statements. That's basically where it's coming from.
Hi, Rich. Can I ask a question?
But Nita, go ahead.
So for Michael and Angela, is this I think what Rich is saying is we want to present a document that shows us in our best light. So is this what you're telling us, that we might see the deficits on a monthly basis like this? Or is this something that you guys have to go back and do manually month after month to get certain requisitions in under the right classification?
Yeah, so we can do one of two things. We can either reclass the expenses at month end as part of the close process, Or we can kick the requisitions back to the requisitioner to have them re-enter it in using the correct accounting code. I think for so long, there hasn't been a sense of budget of ownership by the budget owners themselves. So they don't know, or they haven't in the past been accustomed to knowing, okay, well, I'm going to make a software purchase for, let's just say, Apple, and I know that that's in my budget, and I know that belongs in account 55001, just say. That hasn't been the case in the past, and I think it's just going to take some time and until that's more part of the norm. So in the first quarter, I'll say, we're going to be doing these reclasses. Yeah, and as far as specifically to staff, it gets a little complicated because there are so many people that that enter the staff and the positions where they lay. So as people move around throughout the year, or as new hires come on, or as you know, in May, usually May 1st, we do a grant revision. We constantly move people around. It's just a moving target.
Yeah, I think with the staff positions, that could be a discussion and people would understand that. But later on in different areas, yeah, there might be a lot of questions.
You know, Mike, I think you've got to figure out the best way that you feel the process should be handled. And, you know, without you having to go in and, if possible, you know, approve or send 100 emails to get things done. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me where your time is so valuable. It's spent on clerical minutia, but yet that clerical minutia is so very important because it's the basis of our conversation. So, you know, I'll leave that up to you. Another point I have to go on to the next page, I think it's under professional services. We have two lines that professional services that are printed. One is in the middle of the page, and the other is on the bottom of that category.
Which page is that, Rich? Ken, can you just
under professional services on page 4 of the printout that I have.
Are you asking why they have the same title?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I that goes back to when Tyler was set up. I think that was in 2020. Each of these accounts, the numbers had to be given a name, and for some reason, I forget the individual's name who set it up, but they named both accounts professional services.
Yeah. Well, maybe you could change the description to convey, you know, what the difference are between them. If they're the same thing, there's no sense in duplicating. Just roll the numbers together.
Yeah, typically in general ledgers, I've seen professional services usually has the professional services listed out, and then there's one that kind of is for all else, and it's other professional services.
Right.
I think that was probably her intent, and just didn't have the experience to word it any differently. I don't like other professional services because I feel like that then becomes a dumping ground. You know, it's other.
Yeah, I mean, if you have professional services, legal, that's one category, and professional services, all other, you know, it makes some sort of a stipulation. I am not, you know, and of course, since we got this pilot system, and the more that, since you've been on board, I would throw it out and start over again with a new system. It's really a piece of garbage. But
I
if you look
I
at
would be I would be lying if I said I didn't suggest that.
it's insane.
It's
The man hours that you and Angela and your staff and whomever you had coming in to correct all this garbage, it adds up to probably coming in with, the cost of a new system that makes it almost, hands-free and that integrates with a payroll system. I don't know whether you could upload Excel work papers and create journal entries from that. I don't know whether your system does that, but it seems to me
there
that,
are two popular systems that the Connecticut districts use. One is Tyler, which is the one that we're using, and the other one is eFinance. They're very similar. There are very many nuances inside Tyler where you have to ensure that there are thousands of check boxes, and when you roll the year over, that the correct ones are checked and the incorrect ones are not checked. And it's very easy to overlook one of those. The issue that we ran into when I made the suggestion of why don't we either do a reboot and have the Tyler system run parallel with this and just implement it correctly, or to scrap it and go with eFinance. And when we looked at it, Tyler is not only our general ledger system, it's also our payroll system,
yeah,
and it's our human resources system. And inside human resources, we've paid over the years other companies to write scripts so that it would interface with Tyler. So doing that would, changing the accounting system wouldn't just change this. It
yeah,
would
fine.
affect payroll and human resources and recruiting and retention. And
I understand. It's a simple statement, but an impractical solution.
yeah,
Version. Mike, if you go to page 6, the, the under the bucket supplies, mid in that category, halfway down, you have something that's called district software and licenses. You have no budget, but yet you have a $1.2 million actually spent against that, showing a negative variance.
I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but I know that last year we were given about $7.7 million that's sitting in our grants fund as part of the ARPA money. And it looked at the time when we ended last year that we were going to be able to absorb all of the costs that were going to be associated with that year. And we chose to roll that forward, that whole 7.7, so that we could use it this year. And I believe that this is one of those costs where it's sitting in the general ledger of the general fund until we can physically move it over into that 7.7 in the grants.
I see. Okay. So again, it's part of a cleanup coding problem. Gotcha. All right.
Rich, may I ask a quick question, please?
Go ahead.
Mike, I just wanted to just follow up on the health insurance piece because that's such a large portion of our fluctuations. Looks like we had $2.6 million in claims in September. And is that in alignment with what you expect to see on a monthly spending?
We have right now our actual expense is different. So we have to actually go through a journal entry process where we back out the payroll withholdings and book the difference between what we are actually seeing. As far as the actual expense, we get in EFT, an electronic debit to our account every week for actual claims, and we also pay through accounts payable an invoice of about 289,000 per month, and that's for Cigna for our honor to have Cigna adjudicate our claims, as well as the stop loss. Those AP invoices are typical. They're in line at about 289,000. Our debits that come every week have been lower than usual. Or I shouldn't say lower than usual. They're lower than they are throughout the rest of the year. And the reason is that our benefits package starts, although our fiscal year starts 7/1, our benefits package starts in September 1. And the reason that is because we start it when the teachers actually come back, so that it coincides with open enrollment when the teachers are back. And in September and October, we typically see lower expenses being taken out of the account because people are still in the process of reaching their deductibles. So the weekly amounts have been a little bit lower. Our third-party consultant, Gallagher, is always eager to point out how well we're doing so early in the year. And I always remind them, yes, well, that's because people are still paying into their deductibles, but once the deductibles are met, it's a different story. The side piece to that is I get notifications as people start entering claims that are very large. So there's a large claim report. I believe we ended last year with about 10 to 12 people on that high claims. And it looks to be around that amount. It's going to be around that amount this year again. So I'm thinking that utilization is probably the same. We just may see an increase in the actual expense just because healthcare is getting increasingly expensive. I think most notably because of our cancer drugs and also the specialty drugs. I think there is some creep with the new Ozempics and the GLP-1 agonists coming to market. So I do think that we're going to have a little bit of an increase over last year. I don't know if it's going to be that whole 19% that Gallagher predicted. And the other portion is that we budget our benefits based upon the positions that we have in the budget. So if there are individuals that we are budgeting for that aren't currently on staff, we still budget for those benefits because we do believe that we're going to hire them and we want to have the budget. Right now, we have still a lot of open positions, and every month that goes by with an open position is not only a small savings in the salary line, but it's also a savings in the benefit line.
Mike, to continue on the subject of benefits, did you, when you made the budget, include the rebates that
Yes.
we get? You did. Okay, thank you. Yep, that's fine. I appreciate it. Yeah. Side question, aside from the statements, do you think it's worth having a conversation explaining how health insurance works, the way we charge the employees, the costs that we incur?
Yeah, I think it may, and the reason I say that is because if you look at our $172 million budget, of course, salaries are the large majority of that, but followed closely by benefits. I think our total benefit load for last year was something between 35 and 40%. And I think it is worth a conversation. And the folks at Gallagher have helped us out during our negotiations. And they're also more than willing to come speak to the board and explain things in greater detail. If that's something we're interested in, I'd be more than happy to set that up and have them join.
I think, at this point, my suggestion would be, at least now for this particular committee, and the fact that we're so close to a change in personnel on board members, that perhaps in the beginning of the year, when you have a new slate of members, you do put it on, because the new members, should, as well as the current members, should be updated and acquainted with how our insurance system works, the concept of self-insurance, since it does make us a large portion. So if, whether I'm here or not, it might be something next year you can put on one of your finance committee's presentation on health insurance benefits. I certainly think that would be a good educational, good educational tool.
That's a great idea, Rich. I like that.
I don't have any more questions on
I think Ms.
the
Cooper has her
actual
hand up.
part.
I just want to make a comment. We're working towards that goal, and we're looking at sometime in January, and not so much to, if we're going to look at explaining to members how the budget works and health insurance and everything else that's entitled into this budget would be brought out at that workshop. And I know Kara and I had talked about that, and she talked about that today. So, I think that's something that unless you just want to do health insurance all by itself, and we look at we look at a portion of the budget, the main thing is to make sure that board members understand the a complete gist of how the budget is started. And my other comment is, these things that we're picking out and we're looking at, like the one on page 6 that Mr. Janelli, professional service. If we don't know, and if that's put into the budget, we should have a tag somewhere in the budget, somewhere when we present it to the board members, that this is why this particular item is left blank and why you can't do anything with that item at that particular time. I might not make sense, but I think I'm saying what I think I believe. So if we're still working together, and Mike, I know the superintendent has spoken to you about that, at least putting I call it a round table, not a workshop, a round table to discuss the entire budget.
There are two different issues, Mrs. Cooper. One, the general educational part of the budget, how it's made and stuff, is one thing. Drilling down specifically on large expense items like benefits is more detailed, and I think should be a separate meeting, because it is complex and there are lots of components to it. So, there are two parts to the educational process. The oversight, or the upper level, would be, as you were discussing the orientation of the budget process, how it's put together. The other thing is the drill down to specific items that make up a good part of the budget, is to what goes into it and how, basically how it impacts our employees, how the employees are charged, etc. So to me, I think they're two separate.
But we can also plan two separate events.
Yeah, right.
I'm just saying that if I look at the budget, okay, if I'm not a budget person, and when I come and you can bring me some information about health insurance, and I'm reading the document and I'm new to the board and I have never seen this, at least I have something in my head that when I come to this workshop, that I should at least learn more. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. I don't have any objections. If at this point here, the next section having to do with the actual cash payments, I'm not that concerned about at this point. I would prefer, in the interest of time, just to jump to the last page, number 13, which speaks to grants. And so one of the things I had a big question on, and I think you've answered it, Mike, is where it came to Alliance. I was wondering why there are no figures in there. So I think you've answered that particular question.
Yeah.
So am I correct in understanding that at this point, you do have the charges that are been charged against the Alliance numbers, for the actual and the encumbrances are actual charges that you feel are at this point um, set up against that budget. So all you have to do is plug in the grant number. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. I'm going to ask also that, again, for the future, is there a way that once you get the alliance number, okay, and you get the other, and basically the alliance, because it makes up the bulk of this, but is there a way we can get a detailed report as to what makes up that
Yes.
particular number, the budget, and what you plan to charge against it, so that if the number is $39 million, and of the 39 million, $20 million of salaries, what kind of salaries are in there, benefits, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, our alliance in EGMS, which is the electronic grants management system, that's the system where we are able to see all of our grants and we submit for reimbursement. The budget information in there is quite detailed. And I'm not sure if everyone remembers, but last year I was able with Angela to extract that data out of EGMS into Excel format. And we did a quick presentation just as you're speaking. So what I was going to do is once we got the green light that Alliance is in and approved, I was going to simply just refresh um, that spreadsheet.
Sorry to
The other thing-
interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, Rich. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble hearing what's going on. If we can, yeah, if we can. Thank you. I'm sorry.
See, Mike, it's, I guess my concern is that I wouldn't mind seeing, let me put it this way, I would suggest that once you get your budget number or your actual number for Alliance and get things in order, that at some point you do a roll forward for a couple of 3 years on that. My concern is that in the past, we've used Alliance as a crutch to fill a void for underfunding in the general fund. But with the anticipation that each year that Alliance number was going to go up, and we were pretty safe. Now that we seem to be at a point where perhaps that's not the case, and the grant is going to be capped or could be capped, I'd like to just make sure that the salaries we have in there, are at least the increases that we have at a particular point, that, we keep enough money in that Alliance account to cover those increases, so that we don't expend all of the money on the Alliance account and then have to take it away from the general fund. We keep robbing from Peter to pay Paul. So we just may have to budget the Alliance account and look at it for a couple of 3 years going ahead to say how much of that money is going to be utilized, all things being equal, in terms of the cost of the raises that we gave and other type of increases, and then see what's left for available, that's available free, that we can use for against the general fund. You know what I'm saying?
I do, and it is a concern of mine, and it has been since last year, that we've reached the Alliance cap, I guess, so to speak, and so that means that the salaries effectively that are in here, as we roll them forward, any contractual increases that those folks get wouldn't be able to be put into Alliance, and in a similar manner, any increase in benefits, this year we were projected, Gallagher projected us at a 19% year over year increase. If they projected another 19%, we couldn't put that into Alliance because Alliance again is capped out. So that is definitely in the back of my mind.
Yeah. And again,
Yes.
to those committee members that are not up for reelection, I don't want to lose the momentum that we've gained so far over the hard work and the hardships that we've had the last 3 years. And so the points that we're bringing up in terms of stuff to look at in 2026, that to at least keep it in the back of your minds, and if you're on the finance committee, bring it forward. If not, just make a recommendation, because I do think these points, are of concern, and we don't want to lose track. Um, we don't want to lose track as to where we're going. We're so tight for money, and we're being capped, that we want to be sort of prudent at this point here. And at some point, I also would hope that we get, again, with good budgeting, as Mike's been doing, that you come up with a multi-year budget, so that strategically you could sit down with the powers to be. And Gladys used the word that I've been kicking around for 3 years as a roundtable, that collectively the powers to be at Danbury sit with the finance director and the superintendent and discuss the needs, financial needs that this district needs going out 3 years, saying that we are solid on our numbers. What could we do to get more money into the district, okay, without putting a complete burden on the taxpayer? And this would mean getting in your legislative reps and your council people so they could think outside the box and try to work with us, knowing what we're up against, so that at some point, everybody is working on the same page and they know what number we have to hit, and we're all looking to get revenues for that particular number. Again, I equate it to like in the business. If you make a budget in business, you come up with a number and you say, okay, my number is equal to what my revenues are. And if I want to increase my expenditures, then I've got to get my sales force to commit and create a budget and commit that my revenues are going to be larger, and they're going to go out and they're going to work, their tails off to bring in that additional revenue, so that we have everybody working on the same page, that the revenues are in line with our expenditures. That's the way I look at things. And the only way you can be successful is that the fuller parties concerned understand what we're trying to do and have the facts in front of them. So it's again, something for next year that hopefully you could put together. We did a 3-year budget a number of years ago, and we were pretty good with the number, pretty close to what they hit on. It's important to have multi-year forecasting, because you got to know where you're going. You just can't operate. You can't operate any kind of business just on a year-to-year situation and not looking a little bit forward. You don't have a crystal ball, but 3 to 5 years is a reasonable timetable where you should know your business, particularly in 3 years, is to where you're going to be, barring any unforeseen situations. So,
Mr. Janelli, Kate has her hand up.
yep. Okay, Kate. I'm sorry I can't.
That's
see
okay.
who's names up here.
It's not pertinent anymore. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You sure? All right.
Yes,
Does
thank you.
anybody have any questions on the grants? And again, to Angela, I thank you for the layout and the captions and the separation of the.
Yeah, amazing job.
You're welcome.
The categories. Okay. All right. Let's move ahead to discussion portion. Mike, the next item on the agenda is the 2024 audit. It should be pretty much finished. Do you know when it's going to be finalized?
Angela, do you have a better date? As far as I know, it's still in
end of
review.
Yeah, it's still in review, and I believe she said they were on track. So by the end of October. She
Okay.
didn't, Lauren did not give an exact date.
Okay.
Yep. And it's my understanding, Mike, that once the audit completes and blessed, okay, the certified audit, that with the positive number we had at that year, which I forget whether it's $7 or $9 million, 8, whatever it is, that we're entitled to the 2% of the 160, so it's $3.2 million. That comes
Right.
into that fund, correct?
Right.
Yeah. When do you get your hands on that?
It's currently in our bank now,
Uh-huh.
right? Because we get by the end of the year, we get all the allocation, and what we don't spend, we should be giving back to the city less that percentage. So
Okay.
I believe the correct order of operations is that when the amount is finalized, I bring that to the committee. The committee would then, I make a motion for the board to approve the transfer of those funds to the account that I already have opened at Union Savings Bank.
Great. All right. Thank you. And with, again, the same subject of that particular account, that account is going to grow, give or take 6 months from now, when we're finished with the 2025 audit, we should have another, all things being equal and no changes based on your projections that you gave us last month of the June 30th number. We should have another couple of $1 million once the 625 audit is complete, coming back to us in terms of that account. My suggestion is as follows: it's that we should have a conversation as to how that money is going to be spent and what it's going to be spent on. I think
Yes.
the board should have some sort of a say or work together with the administration to at least say what the intentions are, what the uses are, et cetera, on.
I believe, Kate, you may know better, but I believe we've already adopted a policy that says that. I think we did that last year when we opened the account.
I think it said that we would have to approve
We did.
uses of the money.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I'll look it up real quick.
And as far as the 625, Mike, am I correct in saying that they're just beginning that audit and starting to, to get some requests from you?
We did not start the 625 yet. I believe
Uh-huh.
once the 24 is done, the city then has to sign an engagement letter with RSM for the following year, and then they can begin field work.
Okay. Oh, good. Does anybody have any questions on the 24-25 audit? The next item I had was the impact of the increase and decrease in the funding level, meaning that there was a summary done several months ago where you put together the difference between the superintendent's budget and 170 and the city's allocation of $172 million. I wanted Kara to explain what the impact on education. So let's defer that for another meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah, I brought that up to her again yesterday in our cabinet meeting, and she said that she was able to do that, but unfortunately she wasn't able to join us
Yeah.
tonight.
But that's fine. So we'll just,
Yep.
Kate, if that's okay, in a minute, we'll defer that agenda item for the next finance meeting.
Noted, thank you.
And as far as the goals of the finance committee, I think we should have some goals set, whether it's us or future finance committees. My particular suggestion at this particular point is very simple. The primary goal that I'd like to see us accomplish is to restore credibility in our financial statements. I think that's a fairly simple statement, and it's something that I feel absolutely necessary for us to do, considering the bad press that we've had in the prior years. I truly think that we've got to work hard this year to reinvent ourselves and restore the credibility in what we're publishing. So that to me would be one particular goal that I'd like for us to consider. And the second would be essentially transparency that we always do. But if I'd like those two items indicated on, as part of the minutes, and then, if this finance committee agrees to that, I'd like to hear an agreement, and then we could add to it, as we go ahead. Would everybody at this point here agree to those two goals?
Rich, I apologize. I was looking at for that policy we were discussing. I just want to confirm that, yes, we do have to authorize every expenditure. It says that in the policy. But could you please reiterate the two goals you were referring to?
Yeah, to restore our credibility in the presentation of financial statements, and the next one would be transparency.
Yeah, I think that those are really good goals. I think the one challenge there is that it's going to be hard to meet something for which there is no particular standard. It doesn't mean I don't support those goals, but I just think it's not giving us anything tangible necessarily.
I didn't hear you said not giving us anything tangible.
Right, like a
Definable.
previous, yeah, like previous goals we had were, can we come up with some reporting that we'd like to see from the finance team, right? Or information we'd like to see presented. And there's like we can point to that and say, here is, the report. I think that I think the two goals you're mentioning should always be the focus of the work we're doing, but to me that's going to be hard to produce
Well,
something
okay,
concrete.
I see where you're going. In my own mind, I look at it that step one, I've taken the first step, that is to engage the council people with copies of our financial statements. Now, whether they got them in the past or not, I'm not sure. But at this particular point, it's something that they're going to be given. And then the next step would be is for us to have a conversation, perhaps quarterly, with a body of that group so that we can discuss these particular statements. And thereby, by doing that, but it gets people a little bit more accustomed and oriented to what we're doing, so that come the end of the year, they're not inundated with so much details, and for the first time they're seeing this, that they lose interest or scratch their head or just don't make meaningful decisions. So that was my thought process in terms of the practicality of having to do it.
Okay.
All
I
right.
think that's great. I mean, certainly the goal of engaging city council
you-
members and state legislation in our,
And to your point, we could add to that, as to accomplish this by doing the following follows. It's just that
Okay.
the way my mind was thinking, and sometimes it's not linear. Okay.
I appreciate the
being-
conversation.
That being said, we pretty much concluded the agenda items. Does anybody have any further questions?
Rich, if I could just jump in,
Sure.
I know last meeting you asked about a staffing update. And I just wanted to let the committee know that we have added a full-time secretary to the finance team for myself and Angela. Her name is Jessica Roque. She's been with us for a couple weeks now. She acts sort of like a David does for Kara for myself. So that was a staffing addition. So you may or may not see her name in emails.
I'm in full support of all the help you can get, Mike, to certainly reach out and get it. Before I forget, it's not on the agenda, but I kept mentioning it. Can you publish and perhaps give to us as part of the packet for the next board meeting, your closing schedule. You had shared it with me briefly at
Yes.
the time in the office. I'd like for us to at least to have some sort of a pro forma of that so that the new board members could understand what they should be looking for and the check marks and so that we don't fall, astray as to what we did in the past.
Certainly, I'm very excited to be rolling that out this year. It was a big goal of mine.
Great. Okay. With that being said, if there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Janelli, we do
I'd
have
just
to,
like to, I'm sorry, Kate.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Cooper. I just wanted to say we have to still recommend the
Oh,
September
I'm sorry. You're
2025
right.
finance report.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that. So that we could take a motion to recommend the 3 months, September 30th, 2025 financial statement to the full board.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'll second it. And then all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I,
Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Cooper, I'm sorry.
Mike, a question concerning the 2024 audit, which is still open. And I think I heard Andrew say it's still in progress. My question will be, this keep appearing on the agenda. Will it appear on the agenda in December or January? Is this a necessary item that's going to continue to appear on the agenda?
No, because I think come the end of this month, it should be, the audit should be finished and closed, certified and report issued.
So it'll be off the agenda. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes.
The reason I had it on before because, Mike had given us information on it saying that the audit was moving ahead and there were some, I forget, several weeks ago, there were some, at one of the ad hoc committee meetings, I think it was brought up, Kate, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was at one of the ad hoc audit committee meetings, there were some comments made that there were several items that were open. So I didn't want to get into have any issues where, like we had last year, Mike.
Right, I understand,
yeah.
but I think I heard that at part of the meeting.
Yeah,
And
that's why.
this is why I wanted to know that if, once with the understanding, I'm not no financial person, I understand that once the audit is complete, then, we should move on to the audit for 2025.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay, thank
the
you.
only reason I kept it alive. So, all right, ladies, gentlemen, I thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you.
that's pretty good. I kept it down to an hour, a little bit more than an hour, Mrs. Cooper.
Okay.
I'll make a
you.
motion to adjourn.
All right, I'll second.
second.
Yeah, thank
I'll
you.
give that to Juanita this
Have a
time.
good night.
Good night.